I have, there we go. I had Discord, like, I had the Discord thing hidden, so I'm like, black screen. Dramatic effect. So, we're back.
Also, don't forget,
again.
Yes, we're back. And don't forget to keep an eye on that likes to mute me for some reason.
Yes, I'm going to have Streamlabs up. Yes, I appreciate it. I'm going to have Streamlabs. I have found a little tiny notebook, and so I write all of my talking points on here now, so I don't have to leave the screen unless I get randomly, like, an itch to research and Google things. I do that at church. I run the sound system at church, and there's random times where Dad's like, I'm not sure what Bible verse that is, but it has something with this, and I'm like over there like typing away, and I'm like, it's this, and he's like, thank you, and I'm like, you're welcome, and he's like, gotta love Google, and I'm like, but I get so used to, I'm like, oh, I can Google that, and I go over and like typey. And then there's Jeanette sitting in front of me, just shaking her head, giggling at me. It's funny.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. Oh, man.
But, alright, obviously, we're both still reading this. I don't know who's ahead of who, so I'm really curious to find out where you are.
I'm on page 180. I'm a couple pages away from being done with chapter 21.
You were 10 pages ahead of me. I am on 171.
Sweet. Okay. All right. We'll talk then.
We have been staying right with each other. I swear. Yeah. I was like, man, I've slowed down. She's gonna breeze right ahead of me. This is insane. But I got into playing Sims last night, so I had to force myself to stop playing Sims just to read a page to get on my repeating. But it's not the book. I was just into Sims. But I remember. I think we talked about our thoughts already privately with each.
Yeah.
Like, I gotta remember what we talked about with everybody else. But this book is not slowed down. It feels very exciting. Like, it's a very plot heavy.
Pretty consistent pace. Yeah, and I would say it's definitely really plot heavy. There was one part where the semi-spicy bit that we were kind of discussing, that you had said you kind of taken a break because you just didn't really. I feel like having that this early in the book, and it's not like early in the book, like we're still like in the first half, and it's like they've set spoilers by the way for The Fallen and the Kiss of Dusk. It's book 3 in the Crown of Naxia series. It's the second book in the Shadowborn duet. So if you have not read any of books 1 and 2, no, 1 through 3, because this is 4, leave. Anyway.
This will probably spoil book 3 just because of the nature of it being book 4, like, so just warning.
So, like, well, and I guess maybe a little bit of book 1 and 2, just to see, like, because who's still around, I guess. Makes sense. Anyway. I feel, she set up this whole premise that he can't touch her without getting sick because she's essentially dead and a wraith, and so he can't touch her.
I love that trope.
Yeah.
I don't know what it's called, but I have loved where they can't touch because something is deadly to one or the other. First, I have used that trope before, and I've never seen it used in a mainstream book before. So the trope itself, I really do like. Anyways, continue.
No, you're good. And it's like, I feel like she's set up this whole premise, and the way I saw it, the way I assumed it was going to go, is they're not going to be allowed to be spicy with each other until way later in the book. And it's going to be this huge buildup. Anyway, I'm a middle school child. I apologize. I just, middle school teachers just didn't escape middle school. That's why they go back and teach there, just so you know.
In my defense, I have my husband's childlike humor, so he is still a middle school boy. So it's like,
middle school's great, all the awkwardness.
Yeah.
But it's like, I feel like it ruined the yearning, because if he gets a little needy, he can just, he can watch her get excited. You know what I'm saying? It just kind of like,
kind of ruined the yearning.
She has a death power that's like defeated by a bedsheet, and I'm just like, are you serious right now? It's like,
it kind of made a simple, stupid solution to the whole we can't touch thing. It's like, oh, put on clothes and gloves and bed sheets or whatever.
Yeah.
And also, can I just say another thing that just minor, like just because somebody has an itch doesn't mean you have to scratch that itch.
It can build. And that was dropping here. Yes, and that's what I was expecting. Is it to build and build and build, and then, you know, like him and her constantly being like wanting each other physically, and it just, that took away from it a little bit. But to be fair, it wasn't a full sex scene. So the thing is,
to be devil's advocate for the other side too. He had just tortured somebody, and he didn't want to think about it.
Yes.
He didn't want to hear those screams in his head. And he just needed
I agree with you. So that
aspect of it, I just wish the distraction was something else besides a spicy scene, like playing the piano or having a nice memory with her. Or something like, you know what I'm saying? But the concept was still there. Well, so at least it wasn't
and also it was completely one-sided in the sense that she was getting all the satisfaction, so to speak. And so it's like, and he was still yearning by the end of it. There was a little line that he was still yearning by the end of it, the whole scene.
Wait, see, I skipped over it.
Okay, yeah, so it makes okay, I can't say anything but it gives a little line of it at the end that kind of hints at the fact that he wants to go further, but he can't. And so it's so it is still there, but I just wish the scene wasn't there. I don't know. I just feel like, but that's the only thing like I could think of that would truly get that out of his head, what he had just done. So it's like, I fully understand it was necessary in that moment, but I just feel like, I don't know. I just
he played the piano in the last book, and I feel like we could have had Sarah J. Maas is still in my head, I guess, because she always does music or dance or piano or like or just like scenes like that.
Or Misha's laughter, like something like her laughter, like him just getting her to laugh, or like a moment where they're just cuddling, they're messing around, and he starts tickling her or something, like something sweet and just kind of gushy like that. But I don't know. I wanted it to build. I wanted that to build. Like, I understand, like, the spice adds to... I get that. People want the spice. But it's like, I want him to yearn for her through this entire book. You know what I'm saying? I want him to be, like, sad that she's like this, and kind of, like, guilty that she's like this, but at the same time yearning for her, and, like, trying to do everything he can to bring her back. You know? And it's like, that's what I want. But it's like, it took away from that just a little.
Yeah, and for me too, beyond that, the whole concept of him wanting her back, if it focuses on, I want to touch you and I can't touch you, then it takes away from the emotional aspect of what's happening to her. It's not all about spice, and it shouldn't always be about spice. So I feel like it just annoys me that, because Carissa Broadbent had never fallen into that trap really, and keep in mind I don't remember books very well. And I feel like she's one of the few authors that doesn't fall into that, and like everybody else does. It's all about spice. And I would argue, like, I'm worried that
I would argue that it didn't give that vibe. It definitely doesn't give that vibe to the extent, because he's definitely, like, there's been several times where he's mentioned the fact that she's dead, and he would do anything for her. Like, it was like their physical attraction, just for me, at least this is how it comes off for me, it feels like an added bonus on top of it. Like, his desire for, like, he ripped a hole through the, like, he was, like, literally ripping a hole through, like, the layers of hell just to get to her. And that's where it's like, I feel like it's, yes, he's physically attracted to her and he wants that, and, like, that's how he can clear his head in that moment. But it's like, I honestly don't feel like that's where she's taking it, that he wants to bring her back just for the physical attraction, which I love about Carissa Broadbent. Like, I agree with you. Like, she's been one of the writers that she adds the spice in there, but she adds so much other character and couple, like, growth as a couple that builds up to that moment. And then it's like, so I would agree. I'm hoping she doesn't go that direction, but it doesn't seem like, for like Sarah J. Maas, it feels like her writing is in stages where she has like the early writing and the early type of writing that's really like plot heavy and character heavy, and then in the later books she gets more spicy, and it's like consistently spicy with all her couples, and it's very obvious. And so it's like, and now she's gotten through to a point where she's like writing headstrong female leader characters, and she's in that trope here at the moment. And it's like, it's consistently across series that's it's a character, at least one character is there. And it's like, Carissa doesn't feel like that. Like, every book is different, and every trope is different, and every couple goes through something different. And that's where it's like, like, it's so hard to compare Rain and Araya to Misha and Asar, because they are so different.
But equally dramatic.
Like, yes, exactly.
Each one had, like, I felt for both characters. And can we just talk about, okay, one of the things that gave me the most feels, other than everything in this book so far, was the moment when I can't remember what Misha did, but essentially I think he was drugged in the Shadowborn court, and she made them mad so that they would hold a knife to her throat, and afterwards they had this fight, and he's like, I see it every moment, that moment of your death. He like, do you really think that's more of a reminder? And like, you can, and then his voice broke, and like, you actually sees it every moment, and he's like, sometimes I see it and my eyes aren't even closed, like, it's not just when I sleep, like, this is a living, walking nightmare that he, like, literally, it's not just when he's sleeping, he sees her death every moment, and it's just like, oh, it's so good. It's so feelsy. And also, I still love the whole bad, like, I'm a guy doing bad things, and I feel like he still cares, but then there's also, I love that he kind of seems a little bit more callous and cold-hearted when he's talking about, like, some of the sacrifices of, like, you know, like, he doesn't seem like he cares about all of the dead that are just, like, not really lost, but, like, whatever's going on with the realms right now, like, being and everything else, like, you know, it seems like he, and again, like you've said before, we don't know if this is how he's always been, or if something had happened that he's changed, or if he's more Galaris now. Like,
well, and then it's like, whenever he was visiting Gideon, there were times where it kind of hints to his past self, and so that makes me wonder if what we're like, this kind of semi-dark possessive-y attitude that we're seeing isn't just him and his past self kind of coming together to create this kind of new persona.
For sure. And I loved getting to see Gideon, like, the dynamic, like, glimpses of the kind of life he was raised, and like the concept of, like, toxic relationships, because she did this really well with Araya and Vincent, where the person in the toxic relationship doesn't know or pick up on how toxic it is, and won't get out or shut it down or hate the person, because Araya never hated Vincent, and I feel like he's close with Gideon despite how the horrific things that Gideon has put him through. And I just, I love that, because it's, like, very realistic in a sad kind of way when it comes to toxic relationships. Dynamic stuff.
Yes, for sure. All right. It feels like, at least the part that I'm at, it feels like the calm before the storm. Like, there's something that's going to happen. It feels like one of those, like, it's kind of built like a roller coaster. It's kind of building up for something. That's where, I don't know.
I feel like we're in the planning stage, like, we've got to make a plan, and this is going to be the plan making before we do the plan. But I feel like it's going to be gearing towards something. The Malume thing is going to be the big plot, like, because there's so many, there feels like there's a lot of parts to trying to just to get this one thing. And can I just say, also, the aspect, the teasing us about, because they keep bringing up, like, you need to go to the House of Night, and she's like, no, I'm not going to, I'm not going to. I'm like, please.
I know. I know.
I picked to them. And I can't know if it's going to do that or not. It could be one of those things where it's like last resort, they have no other choice, and it builds up to the fact that she hasn't wanted to, is what I think is going to happen, but I don't know. Too. So it's really interesting.
I think there's going to be some more betrayals, and that's where they're kind of forced to go to the House of Night. I think that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, I can see that. So.
All right. So, couple topic, like, discussion things. Did you want to start, or do you want me to start?
Yeah, I'll start because I have a random one, and then my other ones kind of go in line with some of yours. So, random. All right. So I watched this TikTok video. Let me get the author, not author, but the video person. I think her name is THT Girl Reads. So it's That Girl Reads, but like with the vowels taken out. And so basically, she talked about the concept of how most of us started reading like Twilight and Aragon and Harry Potter and Vampire Diaries, and then we went 10 years without reading, and then that one friend got you to read Agatar, Throne of Glass, and Fourth Wing. So now Silver and Serpent and the Wings of Night, and she listed other ones that are on our list like Gilded and From Blood and Ash and Zodiac Academy. And so then she gives this huge list of like, okay, what can we read now that we're really into the romance genre? And so these are her recommended books, and I am checking most of these out. Okay. So first of all is Marked Masks and Secrets, and it's like a vampire. It's like for fans of Twilight, and it's like a vampire who wears a mask type thing. So it sounded interesting. Next up is called Bewitched. It's a true morally gray male character, which seemed interesting. So Arcana Academy is for the Harry Potter fans. Rose in Chains, which I've seen on your TBR list before, is for people who love Draco Malfoy, which we're going to talk more about that stuff later. So here's one. The Wolf King is for people who were Team Jacob, but it has a true love triangle. So here's the thing. One of the guys in the love triangle is giving James Fraser from Outlander vibes. And the other one is giving Damon Salvatore vibes from the Vampire Diaries. And she did not see that everybody has a Scottish accent, and it's a true dilemma. And I'm like, I don't know who I would choose just upon hearing this. I'm already in a dilemma.
Okay.
Fraser or David? How am I supposed to choose between those guys?
Oh man.
Okay. Yeah, so Direbound is Fourth Wing, but with wolves instead of dragons, which you and I have seen and heard of before. So that's on my wish list.
Yes.
Eternal Reign is for fans of Vampire Diaries. It's got a dystopian setting, 2 main female characters, and it's like Divergent and Maze Runner, but with Twilight and Vampire Diaries, but all fantasy.
Yeah.
So I'm like, that's a lot. And then true dystopian lovers will like Red Rising, which I've heard our guy that I
have seen people crying over Red Rising, and it makes I'm like, okay.
I heard a spoiler, and it's like there's a shock pretty soon, like really quickly into the story. Okay. So like, big. It's a really sad but like really good book. So those are all books she went over, and I'm like, and also the concept of like my reading journey. But like people are acknowledging that this happened to them too.
Yeah.
Because I thought it was like so weird for not reading for like 10 years of my life, but now we're all back and we're all kind of delving into some of this. It's like, it's just cool, you know. You found your people.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so I should have grabbed them. There's one there. So there's that one. That one is one of the Draco and Hermione rewrites that were like fan fictions that were published, and a lot of people are like, I've heard this argument of like, why are like all of the, and this is the other one, Rose in Chains, and the one that was just published was called Alchemized by Senlin Yu. It's SENLIN space YU. But there's one thing, a side note, I've heard a lot of people are like, well, a lot of these, like pretty much all of these books, or like several of these, like Hermione fanfictions are all about Hermione being sold as a SLAVE to Draco and blah, 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 blah. And they're like, it's kind of like really demeaning to her. And it's like, you need to know the context of Harry Potter to understand why that's a common storyline. One, Hermione is a Muggle-born. That means that she has no magical ancestry in her family that we know of. Okay? Draco is not. Both of his parents were wizards, and their ancestry is traced way far back as being wizards. So there's like this whole concept of like blood purity is the whole big theme throughout the entire series. Voldemort is very much against Muggles, people who don't come from magic background, learning magic. So a lot of these fan fictions are written like in an alternate universe, like what if Voldemort won and Harry lost? Like that's the main kind of beginning premise of a lot of the fan fictions where Hermione is like sold to Draco or whatever, like she's forced to be around Draco and all this other, like a lot of them are because they're like, well, what if Voldemort won? And Hermione, being an incredibly smart witch, because she's known to be probably one of the smartest at Hogwarts when they were there, and so because she's so smart, like this whole concept, like what would happen to her if things were to have ended differently. And so like that's why, just a side note, that's why a lot of the Hermione fan fictions have that similar kind of basis, is because it's a very common what if Harry didn't succeed and he failed and Voldemort was still alive and did die and all that.
Okay.
So Alchemized is was originally a Draco and Hermione fan fiction. It was originally called it's called Alchemized, but it was originally called I should know this. What was it called? Okay, being careful not to press buttons so I don't mute people.
That's funny. And I will remind you to check and make sure I can still be heard before we discuss anything.
Yes. Was originally called... Starts with an M, but I forget it. Manacled. Manacled. And it was posted on Archive of Our Own, which is a very, very common, popular... We're both still... hearable. We can hear each other, so we're good. It's essentially like a what if Voldemort won, the second Wizarding War type of thing. It does include a lot, just for people that, like, if you see it, it's very popular on TikTok, at least the side of TikTok I'm on at the moment. I'm getting a lot of videos about it. But this is just a warning. I went to the author's website, and she does, like, in her Q&A section, she does have a list of trigger warnings, because it's very, very, very dark book from what I've heard. I managed to find the original fan fiction one and downloaded it before it was taken off the internet, because I'm just like, I just want to be able to say that I have access to this if I ever read this book. But it has okay, if you look at it from the perspective of it being that dark alternate timeline from Harry Potter, like a lot of these triggers make sense, but it's like, if you're looking at it from like a purely standalone book, and this will kind of get into like the discussion that I have with it here in a second, but it's like wartime violence, religious like abuse, trauma, and like basic trauma, like suicidal type stuff, self-harm, experimentation, different variations of assault, grape, if you get what I'm saying. I don't want to say the actual word, but like medical torture, like there's a lot of heavy topics, and from what I've gathered, the people that have read it and read the original and read the new one, they're both very emotional books. Like, you will like feel for the characters. There's a lot of emotion with the characters, and a lot of like, and that was one of the things that people are like, I just want that to come across in the new book, is that I want you to like fall in love with the characters just as much as you would have if it was the fan fiction, you know what I'm saying? But the thing is, the fan base is kind of divided. Some people say that you need to read Manacled, which is the fan fiction variation, first before you read the new one. Some people are like, she made the point of taking that one down and rewriting it to making it her own, getting rid of all the copyrighted stuff, completely making it her own story. And so they're like, you shouldn't have to read that one to appreciate this one, which I can see why some people would be concerned that, like, if you don't understand the backstory that these characters have, and like if you come at it from the fan fiction perspective, these characters have a lot of history that's not in that book specifically, but it's kind of been built up for an entire series. And so I can see why a lot of people would have been like, you need to understand their history to understand why it's so emotional. So I get that, but at the same time, she's made the point of separating this from Harry Potter and making it her own story. So it's like, I feel like at least we can do is separate it and talk about like it's its own book rather than just, oh, it's a fan fiction that's been published. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. It's just a really tricky slope. And I just want to get your thoughts because I'm just like, I can see both sides. But
yeah. Well, in my opinion, if a person's on the camp of you have to read the fan fiction first because these characters have all the history from Harry Potter, and then you go and buy the book, the new version, in my mind, it's like ethically, especially from an author standpoint, it's like and the author rewrote it and changed it up, but it's still taking advantage of the back history of another author's work, because it's like another author wrote Draco and Hermione and the Harry Potter series and all of that build up and all of the emotional connection that they started off from. So if you feel like, not you, but if a person feels like they have to read the fiction to enjoy the published version, then it's almost as if she's plagiarizing from the other author, because you're taking all of that emotional history that another author did and wrote that's not your own. So if you really truly want it to stand on its own, that emotional connection between them and all of that buildup needs to be in this book or in her own version of a series like Harry Potter
and stuff.
Because I'm still torn even about rewriting fan fictions and publishing them. Just from a stand, I guess it depends on how much you changed, how much you tweaked, and what you added to make it different than what it was. It's like, as a person who used to write fan fiction, I no longer do. I can say that like the whole point of writing a fan fiction is this is a scenario that you wanted to happen that didn't, and you got to get it out of the system. So if you're rewriting that to your own, I don't see what you would change to make it your own, because what you wanted was this other content, essentially. Like I did with Star Wars. Star Wars was my fan fiction. So, because I have some other fan fictions I thought about tweaking, but I've never felt like I could change it enough to make it different. And so it's just really interesting. And that it's just, and it piggybacks off of something else entirely that I was going to talk about too later, but it's just, I don't know.
And it's just like, it's one of those things, like, I feel like if you are wanting to support this author, like, not you, like, just when I say you, I mean a person in general. I think that's what you were meaning as well when you said you. But, like, if you, as a listener, are wanting to support this author and support her, this independent story that she's made her own, then you have to have faith that she's tweaked it and adjusted it, made it herself, so that way you will fall in love with the characters just as much as you did originally, but without all of the other Hermione Draco background. You know what I'm saying? Like, there has to be, and that's where it's like, honestly, I don't see how she can get away with publishing it if she hadn't gotten rid of every element. And like, I've heard some people kind of hint at the fact that things have been rewritten, and so it's like, that gives me faith that she's completely separated the Harry Potter Hermione Draco aspects out of it and made it her own world. And it's like, if that's the case, then you're kind of like, people are kind of doing a disservice if they feel like you have to read the fan fiction to fully appreciate the novel, because it's a book in and of itself. It's not, at this point, it's no longer a Hermione Draco fan fiction. I know I describe it that way because there's just a handful of books. It seems like there's a handful of books that started as Draco and Hermione fan fictions that moved into something else. And it's like
it's a new trend. Here's the thing too. If you if you as a person, as a reader and a fan of this stuff, want to support the author and read the standalone, but if you still want specifically Draco and Hermione and a fan fiction like that, then go read the fan fiction, or at least before it was taken down. Like, you know, there's nothing, because like, I remember when I was reading the Rhysand fan fiction that was like ACOTAR, but from Rhysand's perspective. And I loved that. And she wrote Rhysand pretty close to what Sarah J. Maas did. But there's still a part that you have to acknowledge that it's still a fan fiction. Because I think that one, I actually found people printing it and selling it on Etsy. And the way they were getting by with this was they were printing it and doing their book binding. So like, it was like technically okay. But like, and then I think Sarah J. Maas allowed people to get permission of rights from her to resell paperbacks and stuff. So I think hers was a little different. And like with mine, one of mine that I did was The City of Bones from Jace's perspective. But when I started publishing, I was like, I am taking the book and just writing it and putting it out there for free. And the author may not want it out there for free because all the dialogue is the same. It's just the thoughts and stuff would be Jace's. And so that's I took that one down and stuff just because of that. But I love fan fictions, and like, and also the other aspect to this too is like, all authors, whether they admit it or not, their idea started from somewhere. And so most of the time you have a random idea that's yours, but all ideas came from somewhere. Like if you look at George Lucas and how his whole thing was like new for sci-fi, because all sci-fi had done was like all this new technology and stuff. He was the first guy who made it where it was like the ship was old, it was a piece of junk, and that was like innovative for sci-fi at the time. But the whole concept of Star Wars was like kind of like I think he did it more from Vietnam and that whole thing, like his political statement. But the concept is like big empire, like the Nazis try to take over little tiny rebellion, and a rebellion of people trying to take down the big guys.
Yeah.
That still comes from somewhere.
Yeah.
So it's like everybody has inspiration comes from somewhere.
Yeah.
Which honestly goes into one of my other ones. I saw this TikTok of a person that made it was a meme-ish TikTok.
Yeah.
But it was like, the meme meaning was like, I'm so sick of books being plagiarized. And she held up one of the books in the Powerless series. And I was reading through the comments, and people were like, yes, I'm so mad at this book. It's basically Red Queen and stuff like that. And so I really wanted to read the two to compare them, because I remember when it first broke out, you and I talked about the story of how people thought Red Queen plagiarized from it, and so the Red Queen author got a lot of hate until people figured out that Powerless came second. But the thing is, I don't know for sure, but I think we had heard that Powerless just said it was inspired by, and that it was kind of more accidental. And so it's like, for me, it's like that on that side of things too, you have other authors like that who are getting hate for being too similar to another book, and they didn't mean to, and people are hating for it. And then you have this other crowd who are totally okay with taking direct fan fictions, rewriting them, and publishing them. And so it's this wide variety. Like when I read the final book in the Glass series, Kingdom of Ash, I do entire plot lines that are the exact same thing in my final Valiant series book. I just did it with a male character instead of a female character, and that was accidental because I wrote mine years ago. Yeah. So sometimes, because ideas are so popular, they just end up out there. Yeah. So it's like, it's this whole thing of like a fascinating topic for me to talk about, because there's no right or wrong answer, in my opinion, as long as you're being ethical and not directly stealing somebody's work. But it's really intriguing, because you have very different people on different sides. Yeah, and it's like, if you feel like a bunch of different books that you're reading all feel the same as one particular book, or they all feel similar, then congratulations, you're reading from the same genre a lot. Because it's like, literally epic fantasy originated with J.R.R. Tolkien. I was watching the panel that Brandon Sanderson posted. It was from I think it's like Epic Con, Fantasy Con, some kind of con. But it was for Epic Fantasy. It was for like Epic Fantasy. I forget the name of it, and I'll think of it later. But a lot of them, many times when they're answering questions, they would originate back, and it had like the author of Game of Thrones. It had Brandon Sanderson. It had quite a few of like big name epic fantasy writers. And it's like, it was so funny because they kept going back and referencing Tolkien for every answer. And it made me giggle after a while, because I'm like, he literally invented a genre is what happened. You know what I'm saying? And so it's like George Lucas's version of sci-fi. You know? I think that's something like good for people to remember, is that when you're reading a series, when you're reading in a genre, like that genre originated from somewhere. Science fiction originated from somewhere. Fantasy originated from somewhere. Like, they came from like the Greek, you know, legends and the story, like that. Fantasy originated somewhere, you know. Romance originated somewhere, probably like Shakespeare, you know, like a lot of that. I'm pulling stuff up out of the top of my head, but it's like, and like you said, there's going to be plot lines that are similar, that are repeated through multiple books. Like we call them tropes now. Yeah. You know, the thing is, what's so fun to me, I've seen this quote about J.R.R. Tolkien talking to, I almost want to say George R. Martin every time I say that, so I got to be careful who I'm saying. Yeah. And then you got the author of Harry Potter, so it's just too many names. But anyway, so there's this thing I saw about J.R.R. Tolkien the first time he talked to C.S. Lewis, and when C.S. Lewis was first saved as a Christian, and how J.R.R. Tolkien told him that all stories, they used to call them fairy stories, but we would call them fairy tales today. they all have similar aspects and things like that, because every story will have elements of the true story, which is the Bible. And if you think about it, like some of the myths and legends, like look at Hercules, the legend of this big strong man who was like a hero to his people. Who does that sound like? It's Samson. Like stories obviously get over exaggerated and changed, and as you spread through cultures, you'll tweak it to fit whatever culture at the time. But essentially, like, they all came from some sort of aspect of truth in the original version of the story. And so that's how you get all these different stories, and then they keep building and everybody adds something to it, and that's basically where we have tropes and stuff today, you know. And like you said, a lot of the romances originated with you know, William Shakespeare. Like, I've seen a lot of new TikTok, I think it's on Instagram, new reels on Instagram, like, oh, the first touch her and die trope and the first forbidden, like, morally gray character, and they showed Disney's Beauty and the Beast, and like that's where we all got it from. And I'm like, never picked up on the fact that like that was one of my favorite Disney movies growing up, and it's got all the things that we read in books now. He's a beast, he can control his beast form, he has an anger temper, he's a morally gray character, you know, it's a forbidden romance, she's forced to stay with him and against her will. It's got all of the things, and so it's like all of these things that we love had some inspiration from somewhere.
That's funny. That is very true.
Yep.
Alrighty. Let's see. Do I do the drama-y one, or do I do the discussion-y one?
Let's do drama, because we just talked a lot.
Okay. So, there's a couple. Okay. I have two. Pick one or two.
One.
Okay. The Book Talk Bros. There's a kind of a phrase called Book Talk Bros on TikTok. It's just guys that have decided to make reading channels, but they typically talk and suggest books from the similar genre, from the same genre. They don't really branch out from that too much, which I'm like, there's like a good chunk of book talkers in general that don't branch out from
like every
it's not just a guy thing. It's not just a guy thing, but
genre that they typically stay in though. But
well, there's some people, one person in particular, I didn't even think to look up the name of this particular person, was throwing hate at these these guys that just read the same genre, and apparently, this particular person said that if they only read books from one genre and they don't branch out at all, that they're emotionally unintelligent, or essentially, I believe that's the phrasing that they used. And I don't know, it hit me wrong, because the only reason why reading is a hobby for me is because I can read what I want to read. I am probably never going to read nonfiction for fun. I'm not going to.
Yeah.
Like, I don't stick to one genre, but for the most part, I read variations of fantasy because that's what I enjoy. I'm not going to go out and read a bunch of contemporary romance unless one particularly I enjoy and I want to read. Like, I've read maybe one, and that was only because I got it in a book of the month box. So it's like, I honestly don't feel like we should hate people for wanting to read in one particular genre. And they know what they like, and they know what they enjoy. So why are we hating on people for that?
And the thing is that I would almost argue with the person who was hating on the book bros or whatever. Mm-hmm. Tell that to every girl who is stuck in the smut. Like, every girl who reads spice and smut, whether it's a variation of romantasy or dark romance, it's still in the romance, smut, spicy type of genre. And they never read something with that element in there. And it's what they want to read. And yet you're confronting the book bros about what they want to read. You know what I'm saying? Like, it just feels very hypocritical. So I'm with you on how that's not fair. And again, reading what you want to read, that's the whole aspect of just having the freedom to read, you know?
Yeah. But yeah, so that was just kind of it. And there's a lot of people that were had that similar thought and were like defending these guys. And they're like, I understand, like, some people are like, if you don't like that kind of content, don't follow those people. Like, just don't follow them. Don't watch their videos if you don't like them. So it's like, I don't know. And it just, And I guess people are saying that readers should be reading diversity in order to avoid this particular problem of being emotionally unintelligent, I guess. I don't know. But it's like, if I don't like a genre, I'm not going to read out of it, period. Like, if I don't like it, I'm not going to read it.
To read a Christian book because I doubt that they want to read a Christian book, and yet so there's always a limit that somebody has of what they want to read. Something that you don't want to read and see how much you enjoy it.
Yeah. And honestly, I would go so far as to argue that a lot of the reason why a lot of younger people don't enjoy reading is because they've been told their entire life that they have to read this or they have to read that.
Yep.
It's part of the reason why people don't want to read. And yeah, so the other, did you have one that you wanted to bounce to, or, and then we'll go back to mine?
A article that was asking the question, is reading always better for your brain than listening to audiobooks? And it was an interesting topic. I don't know what their stance on it is, but I'm going to browse through and see. Reading books and listening to audiobooks tap into different elements of cognition, each with their own benefits. So which one should you choose and when? Of course, I have to subscribe to read the rest of the article, so this was a completely pointless little thing for me to bring. So, yeah, this person was disheartened by frequent reports of a decline in reading for pleasure among young people. And so when a friend asked them whether her daughter was getting the same benefits from an audiobook that she would from reading, her instinct was she's enjoying a book, the format doesn't matter. But when she dug into the science, she found the medium does shape the mind in subtly different but meaningful ways. But I can't read the rest of the article because that's where they cut me off. So that was kind of pointless. I don't know the science behind it, so I can't talk about that. But I would say, for me, there, like we had just talked about, there's such a decline in young people wanting to read. If whatever new format of reading pops up that allows people to just be able to read books, in my mind, is a positive thing, because there are lots of young people, I'm sure, and even middle-aged people who get busy, who don't have time, who may listen to audiobooks while they're cleaning, doing chores, reading in the car, and at least it's some form of listening to a book. Even if it's not actually like, you know, following the words on page type thing. It's like how people would argue about paperbacks versus ebooks or whatever. It's like, to me, it's just reading is reading, and it's positive for people to read, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, I would argue there's, at least from a teacher standpoint, if a student is hearing it being read to them, if they're writing it themselves and reading it, if they're hearing it, if you activate as many of those communication points as possible, so like there's receiving information, which is like reading or listening, there's providing information, which is speaking or like writing, and so it's like reading versus writing, speaking versus listening. And if you want a kid to comprehend something, like, you want to activate as many of those as possible. So if they're learning how to spell something correctly, you want them to say it, you want them to write it, you want them to use it, you want them to hear it pronounced correctly multiple times. And so it's like that repetition and activating all of those different things. And I also saw a podcast a while back, it's been a little while now, but it talked about how when you're when we read ourselves, we tend to skim read, whereas we read in just, large chunks, and we tend to skip over certain words because we just naturally just read that way. But if you're listening to an audiobook, you're listening to every word that's hopefully grammatically correct, and so you're absorbing way more information when you're listening to something versus than when you're just reading it alone. And so it's there's definitely a lot of science behind that, and I don't know why people don't still have this mindset of audiobooks aren't reading.
Well, because the thing is, that's why when you're editing, you can't just rely on yourself editing for a book, and you're gonna skip over stuff. And if you have to be yourself, read it out loud, because that'll give you the most possible things that you can to catch everything. So, but yeah, that was my next one. So we can go to your next one. Sucks that I couldn't read that whole article, but you gave us a lot of insight on the science anyway. So who needs the article when you've got Hannah? When you've got you?
No, you're good. I was just repeating what I had heard somebody else say, so hopefully there's science behind it. But So we've talked about the Harry Potter reboot several times, and there's a lot of controversy with it. There was a noted scooper called Daniel Richmond on Twitter that said that the Harry Potter series is auditioning for the role of Voldemort. And apparently, this particular Twitter post had a picture of Voldemort from the movies and said they're auditioning both men and women for Voldemort, so it's possible we could see a female Voldemort in the Harry Potter series. And so it's just a rumor that it's just like no one's been confirmed yet, and there's no really even kind of speculation on who it could possibly be, but yeah, there's with the whole Papa, I cannot say his name, the casting for Severus Snape and the uproar with that and the potential issues that brings. And then there was like they were showing the Hagrid's outfit and essentially it was identical. It was pretty identical to the movies, and then one of the people that was like worked on the movie behind the scenes was like, what's the point of this new series if you're just going to make it the exact same? But it's like at the same time I feel like there needs to be a happy medium. Like we talked about how we needed to be book accurate, but book accurate, making the changes to make it book accurate also means that it needs to be book accurate. So, and with the whole Aslan being casted by a woman as well, I'm just like, at this point, I have zero faith in any new book to movie adaptations or TV show adaptations. I have no faith at all. So,
we're still holding out for that one to be good. But yeah, I like for me, after Aslan was cast as a female and he literally is like the theme of Jesus, it's like the worst one. So I get that it's still bad though with Voldemort potentially being a female, and like I don't know, it just losing faith in any adaptations ever, depending on who's doing it. But it's like the whole concept of how nobody really cares about Hollywood anymore just because they're not good like we thought, that kind of thing. So not that anybody ever thought Hollywood was good, but it's just like they're not.
It's not as glamorous as what a lot of people are portraying anymore. So
well, I think a lot of it was when COVID hit and the celebrities sang that one song and was like, we understand what you're going through, and a lot of people were like, no, you really don't. And it released the veil that we had over like, oh, celebrities, it's so amazing, I want to be you, I want to live your life. It's like, no, actually you're out of touch with reality, and like that. And I think that's kind of when things started to change a little bit.
On top of the fact, I feel like there has been a subtle decline with that, like with COVID, like streamers really kind of like boomed. Like you had like the whole, there's a lot of drama with this group. You had like the whole Dream SMP group, like with Tommy and Tubbo and Dream and all of those people that were getting like hundreds of thousands of viewers per stream because everyone was at home. And so it's like you saw this like instant, and we couldn't go out to the movies, so you had this instant decline of like people not paying attention to celebrities and like focusing on these streamers and who were just people themselves. And so it's like I feel like the slow decline in Hollywood has been like just continuous since COVID, and
especially with how they're not like everything is a remake, a sequel, or a prequel. There's very few original ideas anymore. And like you said, the rise of streamers and like YouTubers and influencers who are more down to earth in real life. Like we look up to people like Ryan Trahan or whatever, or Mr. Beast. I mean, he's a little bit obnoxious and like out there, like not as close to reality as most of us because he's so rich. But like Ryan Trahan, especially because the slice of life, making simple, like they would go to Airbnbs and they would just eat McDonald's and bring it back home as a date night. And they make it look fun, and it's real life. And so getting real life people to become streaming famous type stuff, like it just made the celebrity life just so out of touch with reality.
Yeah, for sure. All right, the last thing that I had, I saw this picture. It was like a clip from Star Wars Episode 7, which was the first of the sequel trilogy, and it was the first one that had potential that was ruined by the second one and the third one. It's the only one that had somewhat possibility of potential, but and you can argue all you want with that. You're not going to change my mind, so there's no point in making comments because I'm not going to change my opinion. But and neither is Joanna. But there was a post that somebody, it was like a clip from Finn, which was the ex stormtrooper, when he picked up the Luke's lightsaber and was fighting Kylo Ren with it, and Kylo was like, "That's mine, that belongs to me," and he just kind of picks it up and just starts like hacking at Kylo Ren with it, which I honestly I love that scene because he's just like starts wailing on him with it, and like it give this possibility of like, hey, maybe we could have this ex-stormtrooper that turns into a Jedi, because we always see like a Jedi that becomes like, with Order 66 we saw like a Jedi that became just like your average person, but we never saw just like a stormtrooper type character that turns to because like it's like learning the ways of a Jedi. I like that. I always liked that concept, and they talked about how like Disney really kind of dropped the ball with that because they had like, that was a really cool potential storyline, and instead of focusing so much on Rey being this weird prodigy that's just randomly powerful with no backstory at all, like focusing on someone that doesn't have a lot of power but is realizing that they have potential to have this power and is like slowly learning it. And it's just, I don't know, it was really, I really liked it. The more I think about it, the more I'm like, that would have been really, really cool. And I
distinctly remember thinking that Finn was going to be the Jedi, like
the main character. Yes,
the marketing for it too kind of almost led us to believe that, and it's like that's kind of where I thought they were going to take Finn's character.
And honestly, it would have been
because like so many series after Episode 7,
and that's where it's like we would have had a main character of color. That I'm like, Finn was such a good character, and he just got shoved so far to the sidelines by movies 2 and 3 in the sequel trilogy that I'm just like, I was rooting for his character, like not major, because I didn't know what to expect going into that movie. I had high hopes, and I know you did too, and those were like just like crapped upon. And like shoved into the ground and smushed. So it's like
every Snoke movie had was completely done away with, and like he wasn't important. Every Kylo Ren
just randomly killed him off. Yes.
They just randomly dropped the ball with everything.
Yeah.
And Luke.
Yeah.
Like we don't even need to talk about Luke, and like it just you can point to any character in that movie that we had expectations for, and it was all just completely ruined.
Exactly.
Drop, whatever you want. Insert negative word here.
Okay, and then like honestly, just to give context too, like I love the Old Republic and the expanded universe. Like I haven't read nearly as much into the expanded universe, the old expanded universe of Star Wars as I would like to, but like that whole concept of fascinated me. Like Luke and Luke's kids and his partner, I forget her name. Marjade. Like that whole concept, the fact that she was a Sith to come out to kid like that was dead set on killing him, and they end up falling in love and having kids, and like Luke and Leia having kids, and one of her kids dying, like having twins, and one of them turning to the dark side because of a death in the family. It was such a like deep lore, and Disney completely trashed all of it. And I remember even like when you were talking about how like upset you, because Michael's read a lot of, like your husband has read a lot of the expanded universe, most if not all of the stuff, and he was like, I remember like us having this discussion, like he was so upset, and I was too, and I'm just like, and I was also concerned that they were going to start like decanonizing the Old Republic, and I'm like, surely they can't do that because the online game is still being updated. So it's like,
there would be riots.
I know, yeah. And because that's my baby. The Old Republic is my baby. I love that. Oh my gosh,
storming the streets of Hollywood.
I know, but it's like, and so my question, all of that is, are there any potential storylines that you feel like were missed out on?
Everything. Yeah. But no, in seriousness, though, I feel like we've had time to sit on this. We've had time to think on it. And there's been so many good ideas from the fans because like Star Wars Theory and Thor Skywalker and just your average Star Wars fan who came up with better ways of doing this. Like, honestly, I didn't like Rey, but one could make an argument for if they had made her a clone. You could argue that the skills that she has is just the memory of what the original host had already learned in life. So it would have fixed the Mary Sue aspect. You have Luke and the whole Kylo... My voice did a weird crack. I'm sorry for that. You have the Luke and Kylo Ren thing. And like, just the fact that he wouldn't never give up on Vader. And so why would he just try to kill his nephew in his sleep?
Exactly.
So it's just like, there's so many things that like... I think Finn, for me, though, from the new characters that were brought in only in the sequels, I feel like Finn was the biggest disappointment, and then Snoke. Making Snoke something big. I can't remember any of them. Had so many theory. Like, What a Time to Be Alive was after episode 7, before episode 8. Everybody was excited. Everybody was hyped. We were all talking theories. We were all coming up with all kinds of crazy things. And none of that, it was just like nothing was like, for Snoke, especially. Like,
well, and it's like, it just, like, I feel like, and we talked about, like, the Luke's whole decision to whatever, like, you know, like, I feel like, for, like, the only thing that I would say that could have justified that is if Luke had gotten married and had a love interest and children, and Kylo kills them all. That's the only thing I could see that would push him over the edge. Because all of these people, all of these deaths that Vader was responsible for, Luke wasn't close to any of them except maybe his aunt and his uncle and his best friend. And even his aunt and his uncle, he wasn't like this with. So the only thing I could see that could possibly have pushed Luke over the edge like that, to even consider getting rid of his nephew, is if his nephew was responsible for the death of... like, or he saw a vision of the death of his wife and his children, and it panicked him to the point of, like, drastic measures. Like, that's the only thing that I think could have...
Can we talk about how that would have been full circle? Because then he would have fallen into the same track that Dad did.
Yes.
Like...
exactly.
Full circle. Oh my gosh. Like... 100%.
And I also liked that I wanted Rey to be like, there was a theory going around that Luke was actually Rey's father, and that he had kind of put her on a desert planet because that's where he was raised and he was safe and isolated there. And you know, when Kylo Ren had attacked the temple, she was young, a lot younger than he was. And so, yes. And so in order to save her and keep her protected, he kind of like did some mind, like, you know, force stuff with her memories, and like kind of clouded her memory and like sent her to this planet. Like, that was the theory that I was really rooting for, is for her to be like, have a backstory or a background. But it's like, even if you wanted her to be a nobody, you needed to give her just copious amounts of character growth in order to get her to the point where I could even remotely justify some of the things she does in the last movie. But even then, I feel like her standing alone at the end, fighting Sidious, the fact that they brought Sidious back at all was just a cash grab. But, like, it was a major cash grab. But it was like, she should not have been the only person to stand up when she said, "I am all the Jedi." It should not have just been her. It should have been literally, like, and there was like a fan edit or a fan made version that had just like a single line of Jedi, like had this, but like there should have been Force ghosts of like generations of past Jedi, like all the way back to the Old Republic. That would have been so cool, and we could just see these armies of past Jedi fighting this one guy. It gives me chills thinking about it because it would have been that cool.
Here's a good example of this: Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Yes.
The finale of
yes.
The Last Airbender.
Exactly.
He finally masters the Avatar state, and he has all of the past avatars helping him out.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you're gonna do something like that, and that way Anakin could still be the main for like,
and he could have been with her. He could have been there beside her, or like behind her, kind of encouraging her forward, and like kind of nudging her forward, and like been there like, you've got this, we've got this, you know, we're with you. Like, it would have just been so poetic. But because you haven't had the second movie, written by someone who didn't give a crap, who wanted to make the fan base divided, and I will never forgive whatever his face is. I don't even want to remember his name. Johnson, whatever guy. I don't even want to know his name. But like, I will never forget, he fundamentally ruined the Star Wars franchise. Ruined it. Him and Disney ruined the franchise. Disney could have gotten away with it if he hadn't have systematically destroyed any potential comeback. And then what was the other guy? He made the first one and the last one of the three. Like, I kind of J.K. Abrams, like whatever Abrams. I honestly kind of feel bad. Yeah, J.J. Abrams. I was don't know why I put a K there, but I honestly kind of feel bad for him because a lot of the fanfare, cash grab type stuff is him trying to redeem it somehow. That's literally, it was just him trying. It's just him trying to save it, and I don't understand why they made it just right at the end, and like the whole Rey Skywalker. My name is Rey Skywalker at the end, which is laughable, by the way, but like that whole thing at the end, I see what he was trying to do. He was trying to save it. It was the last hitch, like, we're just going to throw stuff together, throw anything in there, any kind of Skywalker reference, any kind of prequel reference, sequel, like, you know, original trilogy reference, all of the ships. It had a lot of like the Easter eggs for some of the animated shows. Like, they were literally he was throwing anything and everything in there just to try to save it, and I feel so bad. But yeah, it's just, and that's where it's like, I try not to hate on the Rise of Skywalker too much because I understand what he's trying to do and it had potential, but there were key things. The key ending between Rey and Palpatine ruined my opinion of the movie, but I try not to hate on it too much because I do love the idea of it. And like, if you separate it from every other movie in the franchise and you watch it like it's its own independent movie, it's actually a decent movie. It has some really cool epic moments, but it's like, when you put it into context and everything that is uprooted in the process, it's I don't know. Mm-hmm. I could rant about this for hours, and you know, we both could, and yeah. So it's story related. That's how I'm connecting it to this podcast. Okay.
Yeah.
For the people that are wondering how are these movies connected, I'm like,
how is this a book? Okay. Yeah. Hear me out though. I'm connecting it too, but it's like, for writers out there, continuity is key, and you have to go in with a plan. Like, I get that people like to pants their way through things, and if you're a pantser, that's fine. I've completely improvised books too. That's what editing is for. But in this case, they really dropped the ball because they went into the sequels without a plan. They had two different writers for three different that never talked or planned out anything.
They had a plan originally, but then Carrie Fisher she DED.
Yeah.
She's gone from this planet Earth. May she rest in peace. But that was really sad because apparently this rumor was that she was supposed to be very heavily involved in the second movie with J.J. Abrams' original storyline. And I don't know why he just didn't go back and start rewriting things. I think Disney just got impatient and they wanted a movie now. And he wasn't able to provide a movie now. And haste makes waste, I guess. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, you continue with what you're saying. I just kind of interrupted you there. But
that's okay. And it's like, I kind of forgot what I was saying.
You were talking about like that you need a plan in place, and it's okay if, like, for those people that just kind of jump in and start writing without really a plan. Good for them, but you always write with a plan in mind. That was kind of where you were headed with that.
Yeah. Which you can improvise, but in this case it was like 3 different writers, and like I saw an interview that Star Wars Theory did with one of the original writers for episode 8, and he talked about the guy talked about his story treatments for it and how it was going to be so amazing. Maybe it was the story treatments for episode 7. It was 7 or 8, but either way, and it's like they, for whatever reason, the whole story is that Kathleen Kennedy supposedly just went up to Rian Johnson. Rian Johnson actually came to her and was like, hey, I have this idea for a Star Wars trilogy completely separated from the series. She's like, why don't you just do the 8th one? And so he just did it, and it was like not even, so she didn't, like, they're just not getting good writers who also don't understand the franchise. That's the thing, is when you're writing within a franchise, anything, like, you have to be key and like fit it in with what you're writing. Like, I don't know why. I mean, we went to college, and one of the first things we learned, like in my TV script writing class or for film, so yeah, it was a TV one, was we had to pick a TV show, and our entire final was writing an episode that had to make sense within that TV universe. And if you're not, you failed. And I don't know why the writers that they're hiring seem to like not understand that concept.
Yeah.
Like, they clearly didn't go to college or anything, or learn anything from, or retain it.
It sounds like
that is the most thing.
It sounds like they were trying to an extent, but then you have these CEO, higher up businessmen that don't care and don't have any writing education, and, you know, don't want to listen and just kind of uproot stuff. And it's like, when you have a pre-established world with pre-established lore and books, movies, whatever, comic books, whatever, established already, you have to stay true to the context of what you're writing, just like you said. Like, you have to. There's no... If you want to avoid hate, you have to do that.
Another thing, too, that occurred to me talking about the EU that you were mentioning earlier and how it got decanonized, basically.
Yeah.
The whole concept of the EU is really interesting, because we were talking about fan fictions earlier. Like, George Lucas created Star Wars, and then he allowed authors to write books based off of his story world that essentially were just fan fictions that he approved of, when you think about it. But it was all, he considered it, he gave them approval. He didn't really like acknowledge them too much one way or the other, but he said they could, and it was like official canon for a story that was like fan fictions based off his universe that like exploded, and everybody loved it, and it expanded the Star Wars universe. That's why it was called the EU until it was decanonized, and now it's called Legends. And it's like, so fan fictions can have a really good benefit and a really good place, especially if it's like one of those situations where you're expanding upon something. And like in this case, it was unique because it went from movie to book from movie to book, and they had creators' permission.
Yes,
so it's really interesting.
Like, if it's diving into a time period that's never been explored before in that original series, I would argue that, I don't know, it's like it doesn't feel, it almost doesn't feel like a fan fiction if you're creating your own characters, but you just happen to be writing within that world. It almost is like, you know, it kind of falls out of those lines of like your typical fan fiction, which is kind of cool, but just what happened essentially with like the Old Republic and then the expanded universe with George Lucas. Like, he never really considered them a part of his personal canon. Like, his canon consisted of just the movies, like what was film. That's what he considered canon. But it's like he approved all of these other stories that expanded into areas that, you know, he hadn't explored to yet. Yeah. And there was honestly, I wanted to say there was rumors at one point where he, like, George Lucas had scripts or like had plot lines written out for a sequel trilogy that Disney just completely scrapped. And
his original idea for it was that the whole trilogy is being told by R2D2 to the Wills, who was like the Wills of the Force. And like, if you look at it in context, it's R2's version of events of everything that happened that he's replaying to the Wills of the Force. He could explore into the Wills of the Force, and I think he was going to have Maul being a more until he decided to kill him off in the Clone Wars. There was something to do with the other Sith chick that's like a red Twi'lek.
Ventress?
Yeah. No. That's gonna drive me insane until I figure it out. Red Twi'lek Sith chick. Because that's what I have to Google to find out her name. Darth Talon, I think, is her name.
Okay, gotcha.
So I think there was going to be a lot more to do with Darth Talon, and her like thing, and stuff. But it's like that Darth Talon thing really threw me for a loop and made me.
But even his kind of trilogy, it almost sounds like it would still kind of fit in with a lot of like the pre-established books that were there. Like I don't know, it's just. George seemed very respectful of stuff.
He understood creative. Like, speaking of which, okay, we're on a Star Wars tangent. It's all storytelling, so
yeah, it all connects. It's okay. It's all right.
It's in paperback, the third podcast. Anyway, so I heard this. I got on this YouTube channel, and it was like theories that you've never heard of before. And so I started off with the Disney Pixar ones, which were like really fun. And there was a lot of them that I hadn't heard. There were some that I had, but some that I hadn't. I found their Star Wars one, and there was one crazy. And this guy didn't come up with the theories. He's just saying what the theory is that other people have come up with. So, and if they're ridiculous, he's just saying what they are. So there was this theory that people have had that Han Solo and Indiana Jones are the same person and somehow connecting the two. I forget how the theory goes.
That's cool.
Yeah, like time travel, I think was one, and then there was like I can't remember all the details, but it's like Han Solo and that Indiana Jones was a dream that Han Solo had when he was in Carbonite.
Yo, that's cool. I like that. Honestly, my favorite fan theory was Darth Jar Jar and the fact that Jar Jar Binks was actually just playing these Jedi and acting stupid and acting like an idiot, and he was actually the mastermind behind the whole Sith movement type thing. I love that theory. It is so stupid, but I love it so much. Oh my god, yes, because he was there. Yeah. He was just always there in the background, and it's like. Is he really a good guy or not?
People used to give this clip as evidence that it was true, and it was George Lucas saying Jar Jar's the key to all this. But when you look at the behind the scenes, I used to watch the behind the scenes things almost more than the movies themselves. He was talking about Jar Jar being the key to like the CGI animation that he was developing at the time, and without that, we wouldn't like green screen and CGI and like all of the stuff. Like that was the starting of it. Yeah. But people took that out of context and then just totally ran away with the theory, and I'm just hilarious. Like, okay, I'm here for it. It's pretty cool. So.
Jar Jar's the key. I just love it. But yeah. Alrighty. That's all I've got though.
Great fan fiction. One last comment. All great fan fiction start with that concept though of what if this and theories and things like that. And that's fun of storytelling.
Exactly. So. Definitely. I completely agree 100%. So yeah. Alright. We are in the midst of September. We have the Ren Fest next weekend, which I'm super excited for. So that's coming up. Yes. So fun. Yeah. So, and we may, in the future, we may have kind of discussions of what October will look like. We won't really dive into that right now, but, so yeah, just let us know in the comments what your thoughts on any of the topics that we've discussed tonight, because I feel like we had a good assortment of them. It was kind of fan fiction-y themed, but I feel like we touched on quite a bit of stuff. So, like, a wide...
fan fiction, but, I guess I did. So
we just kind of... It was good. I enjoyed it. So,
yeah. Let us know what you're reading and what your thoughts are.
Yes. Also, if any of you have read Powerless, I've honestly... And I will talk to you privately about some things that I've learned.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to pull into that. I don't want to dive into that whole topic on here. But I'm serious. Okay, the book fair is at school again, and it's here all week, and I don't get paid until Thursday. But Powerless and Fearless, I believe, like books 1 and 2 are currently at the book fair. So
nice.
So I'm debating on getting them. Yeah, but
Dude, we should read them together and start with Red Queen, and it would be my reread, and then we could Powerless, and then do a whole thing.
Yeah, but the thing is, the Red Queen, it has a whole series that has to do with it. So that's where I'm just kind of like, I
would just read books.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
And books too.
Okay, got it. Yeah. So yeah, that's, if anyone's read those and wants to give their opinion on either of those, let us know. But yeah.
Yeah.
So.
And if you also have any other topics that are book related or story related and controversial things, or just out of the blue thoughts, let us know. We'd love to cover it and chat. We like to talk. That's our.
We love to talk.
We talk and we.
Yeah. I talk to emotionally hormonal driven teenagers, all preteens, all day long. So if I can talk to mature adults at some point in the week, I will. So this is my I need to talk to mature adult. I need to talk to a mature adult to make sure I'm still sane. So thank you for keeping me sane, y'all. I appreciate it. All right. All right. So we'll see y'all later.
Yeah.
Bye.
Yeah. Bye.